Should I pay a charge off in full or should I settle it? So you've had a situation where you have had the worst happen where an account charged off and now you're trying to figure out what should I do with that debt account. In this video, we're going to talk about those options. Today, we're going to talk about what a charge off actually is. We're then going to discuss, does it make sense to pay it in full or settle it? We'll discuss a secret weapon that may help you get that charge off pulled off your credit altogether. And then we'll discuss a strategy that may help you deal with a situation or a creditor where you're not able to make payment and it may go into charge-off status. Okay, so let's talk about charge-offs and what they actually are and how do we get to charge-off status. So we've got your original creditor account. Let's say it's a financial institution. You've got the financial institution, you had your life issue, and now you weren't able to make payments on that account. The account goes 30 days late, it goes 60 days late, it goes all the way up to 180 days late. And then what most creditors will do after it's 6 months behind is they will charge off the account. Now, beware, just because it says charge off doesn't mean that you don't necessarily owe the money on it. All it means is that they've charged it off on their bad debt expense. It's an accounting terminology the creditor uses to show that it's uncollectible debt. Okay, now once it goes into charge off status, the borrower absolutely still owes the money. And this is something that I want to reiterate and reiterate again. Just because it goes to charge-off status doesn't mean the borrower doesn't owe the money. In fact, negative items can only stay on your credit for 7 years, but you still technically owe that debt forever, right? There won't be any recourse. It won't be on your credit. It's past the statute of limitations to be sued, but technically you still owe that debt forever. So once it hits charge-off status, it gets routed a couple of different ways. First thing is the financial institution is probably going to work in-house to try to resolve that issue, that unpaid debt. They're probably going to call you and try to work with you. If that doesn't work out or you don't answer the phone or they can't get a hold of you, the very next thing that they'll do is they will outsource the debt in many cases, meaning that they're going to deal with a third party, usually attorney-driven, that's going to be much more aggressive than that financial institution is going to be. If they outsource the debt to a third party and you get a phone call about that debt from that third party, it doesn't mean that the debt was sold, right? What it means is that the person collecting on the other side is probably working on commissions. And the way that you can tell is if you have a balance on that charge-off. If there's a balance on the charge-off and you've got a third party trying to collect on that debt, that means the original financial institution still owns that debt. The third way that charge-offs kind of evolve is to that collection. Now, you'll know when it's been sold outright to a collection agency because two things happen. The first thing is the original creditor charged off account will show a zero balance. And then there might be some wording underneath that says transfer to a different lender or something of that sort. And then you'll have a brand new collection that'll pop up on your credit from a third party that I guarantee you have no idea who that third party is. Now, if the charge-off account doesn't make it to collection status, the original creditor will eventually take the actual write-off with the IRS. Now, if the original creditor decides to take that write-off with the IRS, it's not going to happen usually right away. It's going to happen probably 3, 4, 5 years in. And when that happens, the IRS is going to send you a 1099 miscellaneous. And what that means is the IRS has determined that the money that was spent and not paid back actually requires that borrower to pay taxes on. So if I had a charge off for $10,000 that I didn't pay back and the original creditor actually wrote it off, the IRS is going to send me a tax bill. And the reason is because they view the money that was spent as income. They view that $10,000 as income and there weren't taxes paid on it. And this is something that happens pretty regularly. So you'll know when the original creditor actually writes that off on their taxes because the IRS will contact you. Okay, so the question is should I pay that charge-off account in full? Should I settle it? Or the third part of that question is should I deal with it altogether? And it really depends on a lot of different factors. So the first thing is if the account is more than 4 years old, the credit score impact is probably going to be very minimal. In some cases, even if it's 3 years old, the credit score impact can be quite minimal. Now, as far as credit scoring is concerned, when a charge-off happens, and it happens right now, it carries maximum impact. But as time grows in between when it charged off and good payment history replaces that, the impact becomes much less severe. So an item that happened 2 or 3 years ago is going to have a much less impact than an item that happened 4, 5, 6 years ago, if that makes sense. Depending upon the age and how old it is, you might be in a situation where you're deciding, well, should I circle back and take care of this creditor? And in my opinion, I'm all about settling accounts. If it's your debt, if it's completely legal debt, in many cases, it makes perfect sense to go ahead and settle that. There are rare cases where it doesn't make sense. As far as the credit scoring algorithm is concerned, it only accounts for the worst type of derogatory situation that happened. So in other words, was it 30 days late, 90 days late? Was it a charge off? That's considered the worst type of derogatory. When that happened, was it 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Once that charge off happens, it's already in the worst status. The next thing that the scoring algorithm is going to look at is, does it have a balance? However you get to 0 at that point makes 0 difference. It does not matter if you pay it in full or if you settle for as little as possible. It literally makes no difference. And the reason is because it's already charged off. It's already the worst status. However you can get that paid down to 0 is going to be perfect. It makes not a bit of difference regardless which way you go. Before we get into the secret weapon that can help you deal with charge-offs on your credit, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll be working hard to bring you a video each weekday over relevant personal finance topics, including credit and lending. Okay, if you've been following me for a moment, you know that my secret weapon is actually getting regulators involved. Now, listen, if you've gone through your charge-off account, you've looked at every aspect of that charge-off account. You've looked at when it was open, when it was closed, when it actually went into charge-off status. You've compared it to each one of the 3 credit bureaus, and you've found inconsistencies and discrepancies, and you've tried to get those righted with the original creditor and also all 3 of the credit bureaus, then you're entitled to go directly to regulators. So there's a regulator out there called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB.com. You can actually submit a complaint with your findings to this regulator. They get in the middle of it, and it expedites trying to get that situation resolved with the financial institution. The CFPB is wonderful in these types of situations. Now, when you submit a complaint, it's going to be an automated type situation for sure, but what it does is it gets the financial institution's attention. Where before you were trying to reach out to them in the bureaus and being ignored by both, it happens all the time. Now you've actually got their attention. Now, of course, getting to the place where you don't ever have to consider paying a charge off is probably going to be the best situation. In order for you to do that, you're going to have to be proactive on your budget. What I recommend doing is if you're on that financial cliff and you know that you're not going to be able to pay your bills, the number one thing that you can do is you can be proactive in talking to your creditors. That means you have to pick up the phone, you have to tell them what's going on. If you give your creditors ample notice, you'd be surprised what they can do. If you have a mortgage, they might be able to restructure that mortgage to help give you a couple of months so that you can get out of your financial issues. For an auto loan, there might be an option for them to put that payment on the back of your auto loan to help deal with whatever financial issues that you're having. So it's always better to call your creditors. It's always better to take the bull by the horns and try to solve these problems when you see it coming ahead of time. You'd be surprised how much your creditors actually want to help you.